Thank you so much. All right, let's dive right in. There's been a lot of AI talk today, so let's make sure ours is the best panel for last.
We're here to rock
focus on. So just quick intro, I'm Alicia Criner, like they said. I'm the global head of digital and media for Galderma. We're the leading independent dermatology company. You may know some of our brands like Cetaphil, skincare brand. Those who are into aesthetics may know Dysport, Restylane, and we have prescription products. I'd love to turn over to my panelists, do a quick intro. Want to kick it off?
Hey everybody, my name is Ben Kartzman, the CEO of Flashtalking. We are part of Media Ocean.
Kristen, Elliott, head of sales integration at Kargo, and Kargo is a great sponsor of Brand Innovators. But if you don't know what Kargo is, we're an ad technology company that uses creative science to drive amazing outcomes for our advertising partners.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Brown. I'm an executive creative director at Razorfish. I'm also the lead for creative innovation. It's part of the Creative Excellence COE, working a lot in AI. If you don't know Razorfish, we're a digital marketing agency. It's been around since the 90s. We're part of Publicis Group.
Perfect. So we'll start with an icebreaker. We just came off the heels of Consumer Electronics Show, CES. So I'd love to hear kind of what were your aha moments or highlights or best moments. And I think during the prep call, I said for the group that I was with, all the big tech all in the world, our favorite was fitting, the Samsung Bali. It was one of those, you can feed your dog, raise your kids, take phone calls for you. So I'd love to hear what was your, big moment or big aha that you loved at CES.
Yeah, sure, I can jump in. And we talked in our prep call about the rabbit. And that, to me, is so cool because it's so perplexing. It's this little piece of technology, hardware, it's $200 or something, and it can complete and take care of a bunch of tasks for you. And it's the kind of thing that you look at it and you realize, wow, this would be amazing. I would love to have this. It feels like once I started using it, it would be indispensable. But on the other hand, it's the kind of thing I could see myself buying and never using. So it's like that to me was a bit of what the whole sort of buzz around AI was at CES. Really cool stuff. We talked about refrigerators that can, weigh your food and tell you when things are going out and then order for you. I mean, that's amazing. And I would use that, but maybe I wouldn't.
Exactly.
Love a refrigerator that can order for me. CES. So I wasn't at CES, but my entire team was there. So they came back with mini notes, and the beauty of LinkedIn and of every audio, I was able to listen to podcasts. So one of the things that I love about CES is how, us as executives in our community show up and we're on panels and having conversations about how technology is impacting us. And so a big discussion for us at Kargo is around retail media networks and how are we using technology to empower them and their brands. So our CEO is on panels talking a lot about that with one of our partners, Albertsons Collective, of how we're using moments around AI to empower what we used to have as a grocery collector, or your grocery thing that you got in your newspaper, how we empower that and make it digital. So we really built that with them to empower that. We use AI through it by making sure we're targeting. We know inventory of store where you're located. So it was really interesting to see how we're applying what we're doing, hearing what people are doing for technology, and helping advertisers.
All your stuff now has AI. That was the biggest thing at CES. Your toothbrush, your mirror, your pillow, your robot bartender now has AI. And I thought that was interesting because clearly 2023 was a big year to be talking about AI. And I actually felt like it was a bit of myopic innovation direction where a lot of companies were rushing to figure out how AI applied to their products or amping up the AI in their marketing that was already in their products, or maybe they didn't mention it before. But I actually think that's a good thing because, the rush to early adoption is kind of over, and I think it's setting 2024 up to be the year where people are being much more mindful about how AI is implemented into their products and strategies. And then one more thing, too, that I'm going to double up and add on, because you were mentioning the rabbit, and I love the rabbit, and Bali. And I think what's really interesting is how AI is affecting design. So user experience design is one, but the other is those two devices are really cute. I think the rabbit, and it's a literal rabbit that bounces around and listens to headphones, and the device kind of looks like it was designed by Fisher-Price. It was designed by Teenage Engineering. But I think that's a pushback on AI being kind of intrusive and scary for people. And so cute design is kind of a way to offset that in a really interesting way. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else happens this year.
Yeah, perfect segue to our first question, and I'll kick it back over to you, Brian. A lot of our bosses say AI is the buzzword. What are we doing? And as marketers, we're like, we've been doing AI. So I'd love to touch on, how is AI technology becoming more accessible, and how are we seeing it improve our everyday operations? I'll kick back to you, Brian, to start it.
Thank you. Well, we use AI, particularly in the creative department, which I'm most familiar with, but we use it every day. And I have multiple tools open at the same time. I'm literally bouncing between them as I do my tasks. I'm an executive creative director, which means I get to make a lot of PowerPoint slides. That's a huge part of my job. And integrating AI into that workflow has certainly, I don't know that it makes it faster as much as it made them more visually interesting and maybe more insightful, which is very cool. But then beyond that, we're already talking about things like Microsoft Copilot, which is the integration of, Microsoft obviously is partnered with OpenAI, integration of OpenAI into all of Microsoft's tools, which is not just like it can help you create text in your Word documents, pretty obvious. It can also analyze your Excel sheets and create pivot tables for you and all kinds of interesting stuff. And then, you may have also heard recently Publicis Group announced they put 300 million euro into investment on AI. And a lot of that is rolling out into bespoke tools that we're actually building for our company that will include the creative that we do and everything else everyone does to help with our efficiencies and find new ways that we can automate parts of our workflow and generate better insights.
Good. Kristen, you want to tackle this one? How is AI technology becoming more accessible and improving our everyday?
I'd love to. I have a quick question as you're talking about this, and
Sure.
I'm going to riff on here. In regards to creative, and especially with brands, how do you protect, because brands, especially with generative AI, advanced AI, they need to protect their brands and what they're doing. So using those advanced technologies, they truly, and it's interesting to hear that Publicis is thinking about this, they have to build that propriety for a brand, right? So is that where the thinking is going?
Well, brand to brand, it's all a little different, right?
Yeah.
So
you can't be in the World Wide Web of ChatGPT.
Exactly. Different brands have different levels of comfort, and part of what we do is work with them to kind of figure out where they're at, and then hit them where they are with introducing tools that apply to what they're doing. And there's lots of different ways that happens, either indemnity on the side of ChatGPT, or also proprietary tools. So we have a suite of tools that are all brand safe that we use for commercial work, and then we have tools that we use that are part of our creative process that just do things like finding swipe for mood boards, making it faster. It's never going to see the light of day, but it speeds up the process of something that would have been like a stock.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Especially a brand, I would say, when you're thinking about brands and making sure there's brand safety, a great case study for us at Kargo is working with a partner who's been here, Samsung. So we, work with them closely through all our digital advertising, and we all know in regards to targeting a way of content that they don't want to be around, right, for brand safety. With CTV, this is a little bit harder, right? Like how you're able to get in and see the technology. You typically have to go straight to the publisher, but because we're a marketplace, we have the ability to scan what that content is, what that script is, and we can really work out and make sure that they're safe in the CTV environment. So it's a really great way that we can apply it. But I will say in my everyday, and I think a lot of us are in performance reviews right now, I have used AI, and it's been genius because I've used it through the year, and another friend of mine recommended this, to go through, and in my one-on-ones, I've been able to, and there's some that I've said I recorded or some that I haven't, just taken notes afterwards, but I put it all in there, and it made my performance review, because, I had 12 of them to do this year, just so much easier, so much more efficient. And it made me and my reviews, and then I read them back again. It wasn't everything that I used from the ChatGPT, but it was a lot of it, and it was really helpful from the data that I put in. So it was really awesome.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I do that because people on my team are here.
It is a way to make us more efficient and smarter. So it's amazing.
Then I'll turn over to you.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, though, right? It's like we've got to get to a place where we acknowledge that we use it, right? It's not a secret. It's actually okay, right? Because for all the reports that you have, it's making your life more efficient, probably getting them more information than they maybe otherwise would have gotten. And now guess what? They can turn around and use that on their direct reports, right? So I think it's one of those things, like what we're trying to do before we talk about what we're doing for clients, just talking about things we're doing internally. For me, it's all about efficiency, right? How can we find efficiencies within the business and use tools to help us do that? So whether it is straightforward things that we would all think about, like helping to like craft marketing messages or sales pitches or blog posts or the things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of other stuff. Like we're in a pretty heavy product meeting, and we need all the information that we just talked about synthesized, and so that we can document it and then share it more broadly, right? There are tools that we can use to do that, right? As opposed to someone having to take all the notes and then turn it into a PowerPoint, right? So trying to find the ways that we can take things that right now take us all a lot of time and trying to apply technology. So we're looking at this tool called writer.com, which again is going to help us, right? We feed it a bunch of data and content, and it spits back out for us, information that we can use. So we're using it a lot in like how we look at the business and how we look at the growth of the business. And like, we've got a model that we like and that we believe in, but if you run it through one of these tools, does it believe in it, right? It's going to run a bunch of like, data science against it and tell us, yeah, the probability of you getting to this number is, a certain percentage. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of validating. I don't know how much to trust it yet since we're just using it for the first time. But, I think all these things, we'll give it a shot and we'll see if it actually makes us more efficient, which I believe it will.
Yeah, so perfect segue. How do you enroll, the non-believers, maybe senior leaders or clients who are kind of eerie about, using AI in their creative or data points? I can kick off quickly. One example is for me, I go back to basics. I always say SEO. Where do you think ChatGPT is getting this information? Likely from our websites or the content that we put out. So let's focus in back to basics on our own, as a brand, our own websites, owned properties. So I'd love to hear, how do you guys tackle, the non-believers, the people who are pushing back, whether internally or client side?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab. I mean, so at Flashtalking, we're a creative orchestration platform, and so it's software that allows our advertisers to put creative in and then distribute that creative across hundreds of thousands of different formats and variations into every channel that you want to be in, whether it's social or in video or in display or audio or digital out of home, anywhere that as a marketer you want to distribute your advertising content. And so for us, if we think about what we've been doing, like generating hundreds of thousands of pieces of creative and trying to get clients or creative agencies to approve that. Well, when you're working at that scale historically, this is before we talked about it in the context of AI, you can't really approve everything, right? So what we try to do is say, hey, listen, you're going to approve and you have the right to approve all of the inputs, right? So if you have control as a marketer of all the inputs that are going into that model that is then being used to then, in this case, create a bunch of creative versions, you're going to end up in a pretty good place without the need to have to validate every individual piece of creative. So I try to relate the narrative to things that we've already done, right, that people have gotten somewhat familiar with over time, and then just talk about the AI component of it as just another means of efficiency, right? Another
Cherry
way.
on top.
Exactly. There you go.
Kristen, do you want to take this one? How do you kind of convince the non-believers internally or externally?
Yeah, I think internally, pretty easy for us. We're a technology company. Everyone bought in with us. And I think it's telling that story, right? And making sure, and they should really taking it back to basics sometimes. And I think just out in the space in general, people hear AI and they automatically think of, I go back to ChatGPT. ChatGPT has been talking about since 2022, right? We were coming out of last year, the holidays, and it was all up in the news. But we've been using AI for so long, and you go back to basic science and the collection of data, that's truly where AI was really starting. So that you can go back decades of where we've been building this. So when you start taking it back to basics and things that you were learning in high school, you're like, okay, that makes more sense. So when we're in the marketplace in front of advertisers, we're like, okay, I'm going to use data science, AI, to help you have better outcomes. I'm going to prove if it's the KPIs, ROAS, where I can use my data and my collection of that to help prove that out. So for marketers, they're like, all day long, they want to do that. So for me, it's a great sell to say that we're using those technologies.
Brian, do you want to tackle this?
Yeah, I mean, just reiterating what you guys said. I mean, the first way that we do it is through education. So helping everyone get past the hype and understand what it is. And to your point, AI studies started in the 50s. Your example of social listening, that's AI, right? It's been scouring social and then trying to understand through context and other cues what that is. That is a form of artificial intelligence. Predictive text is artificial intelligence. These are all things that we're super familiar with. It's just the generation part of it, when all this data has been applied to it, that gives us this new capability that's causing so much concern and conversation. But once we get past the understanding, then we show what it can do. and take them through a number of demos and tests, but also too, like, help them see beyond the obvious use case of it into how it can apply to things that people haven't really been doing yet. Because once you start thinking about AI becoming an invisible part of an experience and connecting it to a number of other things that are driving consumer engagement, it becomes way more powerful. And then they have to worry about their competition doing it. And that helps too.
It's a great segue. So, Kristen, I'll start with you on this one. Can you guys give an example or maybe a kind of a quick case study on how you're using AI to solve business challenges, beyond the obvious? You've all kind of touched on examples, but any kind of deep dives you'd like to give?
I'll go a little bit deeper on the Samsung idea. Just so in regards to when you're in CTV and you're really trying to make sure you have brand protection layers in there. So Samsung was really interested. They love to buy comedy time that's in the evening shows. So we got to make sure we have brand safety levers that are built in there because they could be talking about a lot of things that are in the news that they do not want to be around. So our technology allows them to do that and they can keep buying. And beyond a marketplace, the thing is important and hard, most people can't do that. So we can offer that as a solution.
Great point. Ben, do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, so I talked a lot about all the creative that we produce, and one of the things that we acquired a company called Drishem AI a couple of years ago, and one of the things that company does is it actually looks at every piece of creative, and then it auto tags all of the elements within that creative, whether it's a display ad or a video ad, whatever the case is. And the really cool thing about it is when we've showed this to our customers and showed this to creative folks that we work with, they were like, this is amazing because now I can understand which of the elements are actually driving performance inside of my creative, and I could never have done this before. It was not something I could have done manually, right? Like we actually need AI or this type of software to be able to execute against it. And as we know with AI, the more we feed into it, the smarter it gets. So for us, what historically may have been seen as a challenge, having so many creatives and so many variations, is actually from an AI perspective seen as a positive. Because the more creative we can feed into it, the more performance data we can layer on top of it, the easier it gets for us to then optimize. The easier it then gets for us to talk to someone who's built the creative and built the ads to say, hey, this is what's working the best. And so doing that by using software has really it's changed the way that we and our clients think about the type of creative that they want to produce and how they want to target it.
And Brian, you've given a few examples, but I love that the creative perspective, how you're using it.
What was the question again? I was thinking about robots.
Or performance reviews. The question was if you want to give kind of a case study and exactly how you're using AI to solve a key business challenge.
Yeah. Well, content at scale is kind of the obvious one. I think we started getting on that right away. But what's important too, and touching on kind of what I was talking about before, we're not just doing text to image, right? We're using AI in ways that integrate into our already advanced production workflows. So, and it's not just image creation. There are a number of AI tools out there that do really interesting like micro things, like analyzing a 2D image to give you 3D data from it so that you can bring it into a 3D environment, for example. Because part of the challenge, if you've ever done any things with a brand for Gen AI, you tell it to make a cell phone, it's not going to be the right cell phone, right? And so you need to have some sort of control over that. And what we found is a combination of using tools like Houdini, which is like a 3D software, or even Unreal Engine in combination with AI as a variety of different tools gives us that perfect balance of like complete control over the product integrity and the brand integrity with also being able to create 100 variations of it. One other fascinating thing, and I can go on, but I won't. One other fascinating thing is like you can actually use AI to fast track your finishing process when you're producing content and images. So maybe you're doing a composite that's a combination of 3D and Photoshop. You can actually run that composite back through AI with instructions to stay very close to the original image and just sweeten it. And then all of a sudden it gets all the reflections right, it gets the shadows right, it makes everything look great. And so it's a multi-step process. It really comes down to like understanding all the tools and how to use them and where they apply, because it's never like the same when you do it twice.
And one of the things we talked about during our prep call was, the fear of AI. So I'd love to touch on, what's engaging AI versus intrusive AI. We talked about, protection for brands in the mediascape. I'd love to understand what are your thoughts on some watch outs, or how do you kind of make sure you're protecting your own brand, your clients, your creative process? Ben, do you want to give a start?
Yeah, sure. I think Gen AI is very tricky because you don't know exactly what you're going to get back, and you may get something back that looks good to one person but doesn't look good to another person, right? And those may be brand managers on separate teams or different teams. And so I think that is an area to tread carefully, or to the way that you've been talking about, is to use it in ways that make sense for the particular project that you're working on, or for the particular brand that you're working with. So for me, like, I think there are more gotchas and things to look out for on the Gen side than I think any other application of AI.
Kristen, do you want to go?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm most excited to see, in regards to Gen AI, more companies come out building proprietary products to use for, let's say, brands and for companies. We've heard about the big ones. We know what they're doing, but the smaller companies, and as they're developing, I think that's where we're going to really see some transformation as they come out.
I mean, for companies, their data is their biggest asset, right? And then you start building models out of proprietary company data that are sitting on servers at the company. Things start to get really, really interesting with what you can do with that. You know, AI, we were touching on this, you guys were talking about this before, and that's what I was thinking about. AI is amazing because, as far as I know, it's the only tool that gets better through a hype cycle. Because when people go and try it, you're actually training the tool. And so the more people that try, even if they don't like it and they're like, this is dumb, that experience of them saying that this is dumb actually made that tool a little bit better. And if you look at the model for GPT, for example, GPT-3 was 300 billion words that were used to train that model. It went to 1 trillion in less than a year. And like this, the difference between GPT-2 and 3, you know, it goes like this. It's advancing so fast. But as far as experience stuff too, I would also, again, I'm kind of harping on this, like, we talk a lot about chatbots with clients, and both internally, and like I try to push us past the chatbot. There's a lot of baggage with, you know, a chatbot appearing in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and saying, it looks like you're having a problem with this website. Would you like to scream at this bot instead of talking to a human? Like, that is kind of the baggage that comes with that. But freeing AI from a little window and making it the core of your experience is where the real power is. So.
Great. I'm going to have us with our closing question. So some people in the room are like, got it, AI, we're doing great. Some people are looking at us, I'm sure right now, like a deer in headlights, like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. Where do I start? So any advice you guys have for marketers or clients or agency partners on how to even get started incorporating AI into their business, either strategy or creative, you know, where do we even start?
Yeah, I mean, the only way to start is to use it, to try it, right? And you can do that on a personal basis, right? And you can, you know, use ChatGPT for, I don't know, hey, give me a meal plan for dinner for next week, and what should I buy at the supermarket, right? And my kid's one kid's a vegetarian, you know, my wife doesn't eat this. You just feed it all in and see what it comes back, and just start to get the simple feel for, you know, how these types of tools work. You can do the same thing with images, right? Like if you have a kid that loves Star Wars, show me a picture of, you know, whatever, you know, I don't know, me and my son on a planet with 7 moons that looks like we're in Star Wars and we're rebels, you know, whatever it is. And just like, thank you. Getting a feel for, you know, what these tools are, especially the consumer facing tools. I think that's a real nice foray into then how to think about it. It'll get your mind going. I mean, anyone I know that's used it, even those that like, I didn't get it or whatever, like, it still made you think about something. Still made you sort of look at the world a little differently than you had looked at it the day prior before you had used it. So I think that's really the best advice, is to just to try it on a personal level and start to get your brain thinking about how you could apply it, and then you can do the research and figure out, you know, how to use it in your professional life.
Adopt it as a consumer first, and then you can start figuring out applications for your business. Perfect. Kristen?
I couldn't agree more. Go to your passion, to what you personally love. Like, I'm a Strava person. I love to see all my data on there. I like to see everything that's going on. I love that it knows me if I run in Miami, if I run in New York City, if I run in London. So I think going to your passion of where and connecting it back to how I can apply this, I think travel's a great way to really test it and see like how I'm going to London for the weekend, developing plans. Do I like this? How is this set up? I think going to those are really helpful, and then building out how it can apply back as a marketer. I love that idea.
So maybe not performance reviews, but what would be a way to start?
Again, it was my data that went in.
I'm pretty sure the person on my team used ChatGPT to write their self-evaluation.
Oh, no. You can't write it. It's your data.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine. I think it's great. So a few things, and yes, I remember the question. So first of all, yeah, trying all the tools. That was my answer. It really is like get out there and try them all. An AI is not going to take your job, but maybe someone using one will. And like, there's also never been from out history, as far as I know, and I've done a bunch of research, there never's been a piece of technology that has like increased automation or creative technology that's come out that's really fundamentally changed the way people work in a way that cuts time down that's ever been put back in the bottle, to mix metaphors there. So it's not going away. And so it comes to the burden of all of us individually to figure out how to use them. And then for brands, I think about AI brand guidelines, right? You're writing brand guidelines to establish how you as a brand want to use AI, what's okay, what's not okay, even down to, you can get into like what prompt craft is like for your brand tone and voice so it's consistent if everyone's using it, and thinking about all of that through, because it's an amazing tool and I want everyone to love it as much as me.
Awesome. Thank you. Any final words from the panel? I think we're almost at time. Any final words?
I think from me, and from an education standpoint, read as much as you can. Any headline that you see that has the word in it, because it's all over. Read as much as you can. My kids are in college. I said, what's your class this semester that's AI? Like, get all over it, just so no one's going to take your job because you know too much about it.
And I love that takeaway of you don't have to be an expert, but you should be a user. You should at least, try before you buy. So thank you. I don't know if we open up questions to the audience. I'm not sure. We're the last? Yeah. I guess we have 1 minute and 10 seconds. Any questions?
Ask a question or get a drink. Tough choice. Tough choice for this audience here.
Okay, I think we want some coffee or a little cocktail. All right, so thank you to our panel. Thank you guys so much. It's been very engaging and very informative. Thank you so much.